supernatural side, and that is if we finish today. So I hope that you're going to learn a lot today, and I hope that you'll be challenged today and you'll be invigorated today to start on a new course, and that you'll be excited for the next meeting. So to lay the groundwork, I think we need to know what God said about our bodies, and I read some of those scriptures to you. And interestingly, Leviticus is one of my favorite books in the Bible. And it talks a lot about a subject that we completely ignore. So over 30 times, the book of Leviticus talks about mold, yeast, and leaven. So we know all about mold, don't we? We eat yeast all day long and leaven, which is the same thing. So let's listen to the definition of what these are. Yeast and molds are, and I'm going to butcher this, eukaryotic microorganisms belonging to the fungus kingdom, but different in their characteristics. Yeast is a single cell and reproduce asexually, whereas mold are multicellular and reproduce sexually as well as asexually. So God talked extensively in Leviticus about the fungus, mold, and what to do about it. So you a lot of times will hear sermons on leaven, right? Because leaven, as Jesus talked about leaven and sin, because the Bible likens leaven to sin. But I have never heard a message preached on what God thinks about fungus and mold. Have you? Okay. And yet, God talked about it in Leviticus over 30 times. So medical science, interestingly enough, now think about this. The Leviticus talks about it over 30 times, mold, fungus, and yet medical science, and you know this to be a fact from what we've just been through the last year, only wants to talk about viruses and bacteria. You never hear it. You never hear a doctor talk about fungus, okay, which is mold. All right. So today we're going to keep that in mind, and we're going to learn how to maximize the natural healing that God put within our bodies in order to complete this race as well as we can. Now, right before Jeff had his near transport experience recently, I had said to him, literally, like days, I said, our food is killing us. And I've known that for a long time, but the battle was so hard to fight with my family. And the technology was not there years ago when I first became interested in nutrition, that somewhere along the way I just gave up. And I will tell you, just I'm going to throw this in there, since we have started this journey, Jeff and I guess I weighed about 167, which is the most I've ever weighed in my life, because I just was throwing caution to the wind and eating whatever I wanted. And I'm down to 149 now. So anyway, just throwing that in there. But I've now picked up my interest again. I've rekindled the fire, and I knew I had to do something, okay, to keep us both alive, because now it's getting critical. Okay, and so I will tell you that my health is improving daily. And yes, the fight is still there, and it's tough. All right, we've had more fights since he got home from the hospital than we've had in years, okay, over food. And the kids aren't too thrilled with me, but you know what? I just made up my mind. I'm going forward, and I want my finish to be good and strong, and I want to be strong, leading up to that. And I just have to. I've made up my mind, and if nobody's going with me, I don't care. And so the consequences and the price that I will pay are too great. And that's how I'm looking at it. So with so many diets and so many voices out there and so many doctors getting rich on diet and nutrition, and not to mention the government, the World Health Organization, and all the foundations out there, and then you throw in these food companies and the pharmaceutical companies, we just get a jumbled up, huge mess of a message. And what suffers? Our health, all right, because we don't know who to believe. So for me, I set out asking the Lord to lead me, and then one thing led to another, and one person led me to another person, and something that was said that I read rang true with me, and with my experiences. So that is really how I settled on the ones that I'm going to share with you today. So first, I wanted to share with you a saying from Doug Kaufman. And he says this: if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. Pretty simple, right? And it's so true. So Doug Kaufman is on TV. He's on one of the Christian TV stations. He's a dietitian who was a hospital corpsman in the Navy. And he worked in an ENT's office for 7 years. And from his own health crisis, which seems to be the case for most doctors making these discoveries, he cured himself. And I have watched him on and off for 20 years, but I have never followed his recommendations. Now, his program is called Know the Cause. So you can just do a search on your TV for Know the Cause.
Know the Cause?
Know the Cause, C-A-U-S-E, Know the Cause. And he is all about getting to the root of disease. Thus, the name of his program, Know the Cause. All right, and he does not believe the lie, and I believe it is a lie too, that we're being told that everything is genetic, and it has been scientifically proven that only 20% of disease is genetic. 70% of disease is a fault of our own making, if you will. So he and another doctor had a clinic that primarily treated skin conditions, and then he ended up going on the radio, and then that led to TV and all that. So his experiences he shares on TV is a lot of what they learned through their clinic in real lives, including his own. And I know a little from being married to a farmer and being up north in the farm country, that what he's saying is right, and that is that our food is killing us. But how is it killing us? Let's go back to Leviticus. It's killing us, Doug Kaufman says, because of fungus. All right? So mold is just one type of fungus. And there are over 75,000 identified fungi today. 75,000. So interestingly, Carol Kaufman, MD, which is no relation to Doug Kaufman, is a microbiologist and a physician at the University of Michigan. And she asserts that fungi have come to cause the lion's share of lung infections, can you say COVID? And scientists at the Mayo Clinic discovered that fungi and not bacteria are the culprit behind all chronic sinusitis. Fungus has become a leading cause of hospital-acquired infections, and yet medicine as a whole is unaware and disinterested in fungus. So I received a phone call recently from someone who was hospitalized for COVID, and then a subsequent hospitalization for a kidney stone, and then ended back up in the hospital for C. diff. Now, C. diff is a loss of bowel control. Who wants to sign up for that? So this is two people that I know in recent years with this condition, one of which the last time I spoke with them was no better and no doctor had diagnosed or helped them. And this is what Doug Kaufman has dedicated his life to, and that is to fungi. So I watched a show called, while I was cooking one night, and just to have something on, and I watched a show called My 1,000-Pound Sister. And this very large man, I don't know how much he weighed, but as you can imagine it was a lot, was on the show. And he was disabled due to his weight. He was married, he had 2 kids, the youngest was 12, so you can know he wasn't that old. But he could do nothing to lead a normal life, okay, including, the simplest things, bathing, nothing. He could do nothing by himself. all right? And yet it showed him on the couch with his wife beside him eating this gigantic plate of food while they're watching TV. And he was talking about how that he knew he shouldn't eat that, but how like he was compelled to eat it and how he had to eat it. And then he talked about how it made him feel when he ate. And that really struck me. So he knew he shouldn't eat it, but he did it anyway because he craved it and it was so satisfying and it did something to him emotionally. Okay, so according to what I've read, his cravings are very real. All right, they're not, he's not joking. They're very real, and his body is literally screaming at him to eat these things. So he is not kidding. Well, why? Because he has blown up like yeast blows up bread. Now think about that. What does yeast do to bread?
Makes it rise.
It makes it rise. It blows it up, right? It's the same in this man. Okay, what he is eating is blowing him up like yeast blows up bread. And yeast is a fungus. And this man's body is overrun with fungus, and he blew up, and the fungus is now screaming at him to be fed. Now just keep that in mind. I'm going to explain in a minute. But I am of the opinion that medicine makes too much money today, and they don't want to find the cause. I don't give to the Cancer Society. I don't give to any of that. Because guess what? They don't want to find a cure. And of course, this is my opinion. But they don't want to find a cure. And in talking about his exciting findings, Doug Kaufman, in treating his patients suffering from diabetes, Doug Kaufman thought that he was going to change the world when he was a younger man, and he was making all these discoveries. And this is what he wrote. He said, "The physicians working with me wasted no time in letting the wind out of my sails. They cautioned that the published standards of care on diabetes included neither antifungal medication nor a low-carb diet. We could get into a lot of trouble with insurance companies, the American Medical Association, and a plethora of other watchdog organizations if we tried to buck the system." Now, I've watched enough doctors the last year about COVID, about the World Health Organization, about the protocols that the hospitals are going by, that they're killing people, okay? Because their hydroxychloroquine works. Now I can't think of the...
Remdesivir.
Now that one, they said 50% of the people that take remdesivir, if I'm saying it right, are having severe complications.
Really?
Yes, but there's another one that's working. And people with ivermectin, okay? And they said people with, they're calling them long haulers, with COVID, long haulers, you know, that are still having symptoms months and months and months later, they say within 2-3 days, they're completely healed from ivermectin.
Wow.
Anyway, but I've listened to the doctors say that they are forbidden. Why? Because they'll get in trouble. They'll get in trouble with these, you know, they'll lose their funding. See, it's all about the money. Follow the money. All right? So anyway, so if you've listened to any of the findings of doctors willing to buck the system on coronavirus that I've listened to, you know that this is so true, and people are dying because of the system, in my opinion. And it's proven, again, that hydroxychloroquine works as well as ivermectin. Now, this is really interesting. Why did those work? Now, of course, this is all speculation, all right? And I'm taking this from Doug Kaufman. But he says ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine both have antifungal properties in those drugs. So Doug Kaufman thinks that COVID is a mixture of fungus and virus. So he says if you attack the fungus, you're winning half the battle. So I've seen for myself from working in medical insurance and insuring doctors' offices, and Joanne can attest to this, the impact and persuasion that pharmaceutical companies have on the medical industry. But quoting Doug Kaufman, he said, quote, "Articles were published advising against the treatment, but pharmaceutical companies sent their reps to doctors' offices with free samples, promotional videos, coffee mugs, and ink pens. They sponsored seminars at swanky hotels." And I'm going to add, they brought in daily massive amounts of food for the doctor's office's staff. I don't know how everybody that works at a doctor's office is sitting 300 pounds from the food that I've seen, when I would be there for insurance, and then I end up, eating with them. They've got this whole buffet set up every day. So it's all about the money. And it's all about you needing to need the medication. And then needing to have surgery. And then needing to have the mortician. Okay? So it's about keeping you sick as long as possible to capitalize on illness. And again, this is my opinion, but I think that's the case a lot of the time. So can you even begin to imagine the devastating economic impact a cure to cancer would cause?
Especially if it was cheap.
It would literally devastate the medical industry. So how many people would be put out of work if there was a cure for cancer? So moving on. So we all know that antibiotics have saved countless thousands of lives, and we do need them. And we all know that antibiotics kill everything, okay, in the gut. That they kill the good and the bad. But did you know that antibiotic use has been linked to autoimmune disorders? So again, to quote Doug Kaufman, he says, "Antibiotics aimed elsewhere can also kill the harmless and or beneficial bacteria in our intestines." Now we all know this. Absent here, good bacteria and the antifungal chemicals they excrete, invading fungi become free to run amok. Now how many of you have ever taken an antibiotic? All right, well, every time we do that, it kills all the good bacteria, and then it gives the fungus that's just naturally living in us, it gives it an opportunity to run amok. So in 1950 is when the antibiotics became in use, or somewhere in 1950. And since then, not before 1950, since antibiotic use came into being, they have since then more than 90 autoimmune diseases have been discovered. Now, can you say that's just a coincidence? So antibiotics kill the good and they kill the bad, and then they make way for the growth of fungus. And interestingly, antibiotics, I thought this was just so enlightening, are actually manufactured and excreted by fungi. That's where we get antibiotics. Penicillin. What is penicillin? Mold. It's a fungus. So that's where antibiotics come from, is fungus. So in other words, in order to treat what symptoms indicate is a bacterial infection, doctors fill patients' bloodstream with a chemical made by fungi, while simultaneously promoting the growth of fungi in the same patient's intestines. So as in the case of the chronic sinusitis cases that the Mayo Clinic studied that I mentioned before, a fungus even turned out to be the cause of the disease that brought the patient into the doctor's office to begin with. Now in the case of diabetes, science knows that sugar in the blood stops being absorbed by the cells that need it. Now one theory is that something happens to the beta cells to make them produce less effective insulin, and two, something is blocking our cells from using insulin in order to absorb the sugar in the blood. Now your doctor will tell you it's genetic, all right? And I thought it was. Jeff's dad was diabetic. Jeff's a diabetic. But the last time I went to the naturopath, she told me my sugar was high. There's nobody in my family that's a diabetic. All right? And so could fungi be the real cause for diabetes? Could it be that fungus has run amok? Well, Doug Kaufman thinks so. Now, Jeff complained the whole time that he was in the hospital about the food. Not the taste of the food, but they knew that he was a diabetic, and every meal they fed him was everything a diabetic shouldn't eat. Okay? And what's the deal? Well, the hospital goes by what they're told by our beloved government. And in Doug's book, The Fungus Link to Diabetes, he talked about an ABC 2020 documentary that they did on the food pyramid that we all learned in school, and interestingly, schools and hospitals still follow today. And they found, guess what? That lawyers were the ones who came up with the food pyramid, not even doctors. All right. So not only that, but noted physicians such as Dr. Walter Willett of the Harvard School of Public Health have been saying that following the USDA's recommendation may increase the risk of diabetes and heart disease. All right, so throw out everything the government tells you, and that may mean throwing out your doctor as well, and with the leading of the Holy Spirit, do your own research and come up with a plan for yourself. And that's what I've done. In 2002, the American Medical Association published a paper by Dr. Ruth Ersel, MD, PhD. She documented fungi toxins called mycotoxins and their connection to human disease. And this is what she said. Mycotoxins are capable of producing illness and death in humans and animals and are common contaminants in grains. The Council of Agricultural Science and Technology reported in January of 2003 that corn is universally contaminated with fumonisin and other fungi toxins such as alpha-toxin, xeroleone, and ochratoxin. Mycotoxins can also contaminate foods such as mushrooms, potatoes, corn, peanuts, and alcohol. Fungi thrives on sugar, and it will bully you to get it. Remember my 1,000-pound sister, the man I was telling you about? His body is literally being bullied by fungus to feed it, because fungus feeds on sugar and carbs. Carbs are sugar. And so literally what he's experiencing is very real. He is literally being bullied on the inside. So to understand fungi, the chief thing that you need to know is that all fungi loves, with a capital L, sugar. Fungi will hang around and wait for sugar. But how do fungi get into our bodies? Well, it's everywhere. Fungi is everywhere. Fungi is what makes matter break down and disintegrate. And without fungi, nothing would ever return to the earth, so to speak. And so it gains entrance to our bodies in several ways. Well, the first and chief way is the use of antibiotics, okay? And interestingly, I learned that when antibiotics first came out, they had some kind of antifungal agent built into the antibiotic, but then at some point they took that out. So anyway, the use of antibiotics is one way the fungi can get into your body. A diet high in grains and sugars. Now I'll tell you this from being up north, okay, in farm country, you know those giant silos, you know, that they have, and now they're, you know, just massive, okay? Those are all full of corn. And now it's not sweet corn, it's all field corn that you feed, you know, animals and stuff. And I don't know what all they make. I mean, there's so many things they make out of that corn. But what I'm saying is, it's all stored in those great big old bins. So what happens? Well, fungi naturally, you know, makes sense to me. The fungus just naturally attaches to it, okay? So then you feed it to your animals, all right? They're getting the fungus, then we eat the animals, and then we get the fungus. So that's another way. But a diet high in grains and sugars. You can also get them from steroid hormones like prednisone, all those medications, and mild environmental, things in the environment, and I'm a big, barefoot person, okay? So walking in the grass, walking in dirt, gardening without gloves. Oh gosh, I never wear gloves. I'm gonna start wearing gloves. All of that, because there's this fungus everywhere. So fungus can get in your feet, fungus can get under your fingernails, fungus can just attack you from your environment. And then what they do is they get established in your intestines, and then they move out into other organs. So once in, these parasites, they have to eat. They're living, they eat, they poop. And when they do, they make these mycotoxins. And fungi and algae meld to form a lichen. And the fungal partner in this relationship forces the algae to produce sugar in excess of those amounts required for reproduction and growth. A simple yet powerful demonstration of how much fungi love sugar. Now think about not only what you eat, but again, what the animals are being fed that you're eating. Think about fattening up cows and pigs. We all know about that. I mean, how how used to they did it naturally, right? I mean, they just wait the time till the animal got fat. Well, now we all know that the chickens are the same way. They fatten up these animals in a very short amount of time to try to get them to the market faster. Why? To make more money. Okay, the faster the turnaround, the more money. So I hope this is starting to, click and make sense in your head. So could this be why God talks so much about yeast? And could this be the explanation for many of our modern diseases, those 90+ autoimmune diseases discovered, or should I say suffered from since the 1950s? Now again, doctors focus on viruses and bacteria, never on fungus. But God focused on fungus. And he never mentioned virus or bacteria. And I find this interesting because I personally think that Dave Kaufman is onto something. He talks extensively about fungus on our food, primarily grains, peanuts, alcohol, and all alcohol is as fungus. I mean, literally, that's what makes it turn to alcohol, is the fungus. So when you drink alcohol, you're just drinking fungus. That's all it is. And that's why it messes with your mind, because it's a fungus. All right? And then there's countries that they inspect their food more so than the United States does. Like how can you identify 70,000 fungi? But there are big ones like mold. Okay, so some countries look for more fungi than the United States does. The United States, from what I understand, only looks for one. And then they just pass the food on through. So microbiologists believe that there are between 2.2 and 3.8 million fungi on our planet, but they've only identified like 70,000. They are literally everywhere. They are well known, again, to be on corn, peanuts, and wheat. And these are the biggest three culprits. And Doug Kaufman has a theory between corn and corn-derived products and diabetes. So corn is in everything. And when you drive the United States back roads, which we've been working our way across the map, hitting every state, and we're about halfway. Of course, Jeff has already hit every state, but I haven't. You'll see that corn is the major crop. I mean, it's grown everywhere. When you get off in the back roads of just about every state, there's corn. And but the U.S. only checks for one fungi on the food. So could not only diabetes and chronic sinus infections, yeast infections, how many of us women have had a yeast infection, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart disease, arterial sclerosis, arthritis, and many more, how many of those could be caused from the underlying fungi having a heyday in our gut and moving to dominate and exploit and kill elsewhere in our bodies? So that's what he believes that cancer is. And I'll mention that more in a minute. But now follow the logic. If an antifungal drug and a good diet would cure diabetes and a host of other problems, can you see why this is not the desired outcome in the medical profession is shooting for? For example, in an article in 1997, emphasized that the simple chromium supplementation had significant beneficial effects in lowering blood sugar numbers, but the ADA, the American Diabetic Association, which gets millions of dollars from drug companies each year, said nothing about it. Can you say COVID and hydroxychloroquine? And so Doug believes that what we now are calling the keto flu is nothing more than what science calls, and I'm probably going to butcher this, Jarisch-Herxheim's reaction, which is flu-like symptoms or even a rash. And this is what he says. Evidence indicates that when fungi experience extreme stress, such as that caused by sugar deprivation, they spit out even more mycotoxins. So they have a little hissy fit. And the excess poison is one reason you may feel under the weather. In addition, as the fungi actually die of starvation, they release an endotoxin-like substance and vigorous antigens which add to their soon-to-be ex-host's discomfort. So I believe I had this recently for a couple of nights. I literally felt like I was going to pass out. And it was like I was so exhausted. If I could, I'm like, trying to get up the steps to get to the bed. And this was like 8 o'clock at night. And I'm like, I have to go to bed. And so can you relate that to this, my 1,000-pound sister, and what this man was talking about, and how he has to eat, and how it makes him feel? And so after a couple of nights of that, then it went away, and I hadn't had it since. So I've only scratched the surface of this topic, but I hope that I have sparked your interest. And again, you can catch Doug Hoffman on TV every day. His program is called Know the Cause, and he has a bunch of books published, and I've got a couple over here that you can look at. And he does regular live streaming on Facebook, and YouTube is just, full. He's been on TV for 20 years, so you can't exhaust all his programs. And as for the books, I think I had to order them straight from his website and not from Amazon. But to sum up the fungus link, I want to quote another doctor that we're going to talk about, and that is Dr. Peter J. D'Adamo in his book under the heading, What This Means to You. What This Means to You. And this is what he said. He said, here's the bottom line. We are predisposed to certain strengths and weaknesses according to our blood types. We can maximize our strengths and minimize our weaknesses by knowing what our bodies need and by feeding ourselves and our families accordingly. Now, how many of you know what your blood type is? Nobody? Nobody? All right. I think you're going to get a clue here in a minute. All right, so now I want to take a look at the blood type connection. So Dr. D'Adamo followed in the footsteps of his father, who pioneered this blood type theory and its relation to food. Now, interestingly, I thought it was worth mentioning that there is also a correlation between blood type and personality, and that's why I think you're going to be able to narrow it down probably what blood type you are. All right, between these clues that I'm going to give you. All right, so here's blood type A. If you're blood type A, you are earnest, creative, sensible, reserved, patient, and responsible. So if you are patient and responsible and reserved, you're blood type A. Blood type Bs are passionate, active nature, creative, and strong. Blood type ABs are cool, controlled, rational, and adaptable. Now Jeff's blood type AB, and the cool part, I'm not sure, but we always, well, cool, control, we always say he's the man you want in a crisis, okay? Now, little foxes spoil the vine. I'm going to put that on his tombstone. You know, he loses his wallet and the world's gone, or, you know, loses his cell phone and the world's coming to an end. But, you know, shoot yourself in the foot like James did and he's calm as a cucumber. Okay, so if you're blood type AB, you're cool, controlled, rational, and adaptable. If you're blood type O, you are confident, self-determined, strong-willed, and intuitive. Can you say Leah? You are confident, self-determined, strong-willed, and intuitive. All right, so if you know your blood type, which nobody does, I would say, does that describe you? I think that O definitely describes me. And I thought for me and my family, I know what Robbie is and Jeff is. I'm not sure about James, but I think from that description, I know what James is. So anyway, so now blood types have strengths and they have weaknesses. And I'm going to summarize the weaknesses for you. So here again, if this fits you, I think you can pretty well tell, you know, what you are. So blood type A, B, and AB all have a tendency for stomach cancer. Blood type A being the most prevalent. AB and AB are prone to pancreatic cancer. They're prone to stress, blood clots, diabetes, and stroke. They're prone to coronary heart disease. A's are prone to parasites. B's to allergies of all kinds, smoke, chemicals, alcohol. ABs suffer from excessive mucus, sinus trouble, respiratory problems, ear infections, acne. Type A is prone to COVID more than the rest. AB and AB are prone to inflammation. Now, Jeff is AB, and I can tell you he suffers from excessive mucus, sinus problems, respiratory problems, ear infections, and when he was young, he had acne. So he fits it to a T. All right, now for blood type O. This is me. O's are prone to malaria, ulcers, had one, infertility, didn't have that, pancreatic cancer, God forbid, Crohn's disease, bowel disease. I have a lot of problems with digestion, and we'll get into that why. Hypothyroidism, I have that. Arthritis, effects of too much stress causing overproduction of cortisol, susceptibility to non-adaptation to environmental changes when traveling. I'm telling you what, you put me on a plane to go anywhere, when I get there, I'll be sick. Okay? When I was in the Navy, I got off the plane. Now this was in the winter. I got on the plane in Guantanamo Bay and got off the plane in Chicago, and I was sick as a dog when I got off the plane. I ended up in the hospital with pneumonia. When my mother, my sister, and I went to Europe in 2001, got off the plane, I was sick. Okay, I had to go find someplace to, you know, get some. That is me. I do not adapt well to environmental changes. All right. So, hang on. Forgot where it was. All right. O's have a very hearty digestion. So it's, you might think, oh, you know, I've always thought, well, something's wrong with my digestion. You know, maybe no, I have a very hearty digestion. And you have as an O, you have digestion that does way better on meat. Now, one time, a couple years ago, my left hip was hurting so bad, I was getting to where it was difficult to walk. So I went to somebody that Cindy prayed for years for her to close down. And an herb shop, and I'm just kidding. But anyway, she's all new age and stuff, but I just pray over everything when I come out, and I just don't pay any attention. And she doesn't talk to me about any of that new age stuff, so anyway. But anyway, she gave me some drops, black cohosh, and told me to eat more meat. And when I eat more meat, my hip stops hurting. And so now I've kept that up over the last few years. If my hip starts hurting, I eat more meat. All right, they do not do well on a vegetarian diet, and they suffer in their digestion without the proper foods to break down. Now, we did a carnivore diet for about 2 weeks. We ate nothing but meat. Do you know my stomach was perfectly calm? Sunday, we ate a bunch more, vegetables, the good carbs and stuff. My stomach went just haywire. So I'm finding that I do so much better just on meat. And they typically do not suffer from heart disease or COVID, and they typically have a long lifespan. Now, can you see, just by what I've told you so far, how beneficial it would be to couple what we've learned about a typical underlying cause of illness, okay, being fungi, with what we could find out about our blood type. And it gets better. Dr. D'Adamo has discovered with each blood type thrives on what they eat and what they don't eat. And even the food that will hurt you if you're that blood type. I think his book is a must read for anyone who wants to improve their health. And it's called Eat Right for Your Blood Type. And I've got it over there, and I've got his recipe books too. So you can, now I agree, I'll tell you, for a whole family to eat like this would be very difficult. But I think you could at least see what is harmful, okay, and stay away from things that are harmful. Now, for me and Jeff, I'm doing it, okay? So like Sunday, I made like cauliflower mash with cheese. Nobody knew that it was vegetable cheese because I'm not supposed to have any dairy. Dairy and O's contribute to Alzheimer's. Okay, I have completely cut out all dairy. No butter, no yogurt, no cottage cheese, no milk, no nothing. Okay, and so I didn't eat the cauliflower because cauliflower is on my harm list. Okay, now I made it for him, but I didn't eat it. Okay, so there are ways. It's going to take a little work, but you can do it. All right, at least stay away from the things that you know are harmful. And like Doug Kaufman, he says that we should look at food like medicine. Okay, and I'll add to that. We're either going to look at it like medicine or we're going to look at it like poison. Okay, so if I'm gonna eat, say if I'm cheese, okay, I was a big cheese eater, no joke, I was starting to have memory problems. And about 2 years ago, I started on a memory supplement that did help me. But about a week before my interest was revived in all this because of Jeff, this YouTube popped up, one of those ads, and it was this doctor talking about cheese causing Alzheimer's. And I thought, wow, I've never heard that before. And then literally a week later, Jeff's in the hospital, and then here we are. And anyway, so I felt like the Lord just showed me that, that's what's causing, because I did eat a lot of cheese, because I thought that was healthy, and it's protein, and and all that. No, it's killing me. Here's a quick overview of the 4 different types and their characteristics. So A has a digestive system adapted to a diet able to meet the body's needs for proteins derived primarily from plants and grains. But when it comes to plants and grains, we can't forget the fungus link. And they also do well with seafood. So if you're type A, you'll do better, like if you want to be a vegetarian, you'll do better. Like I would die as a vegetarian. My gut would literally die. Okay, so I can't do that. All right, B. B has a more balanced immune and digestive system with characteristics of type O and A combined, but more balanced and tolerant than either of the two. They do well with beef, goat, and lamb. All right, AB. AB blood type is called the enigma because it supposedly came by later. It combines the strengths and the weaknesses of both A and B. A and B immune and digestive system is more complex and quirky than any of the others, which is both good and bad. The good resides in its wide range of immune and digestive responses. The bad in its incorporation of the frailties and vulnerabilities of both type A and B. O has a strong and ornery immune system and a hearty digestive system. They have an extraordinarily high stomach acid content capable of drawing the most nutrients from meat and efficiently assimilating such a protein. Heavy balance of foods. Now, again, I'm an O, and I can tell you for a fact that these things are true. And it has proven to be right because I battled stomach issues my whole life. And I had an ulcer when I was in the Navy, so I've already experienced that. I mean, it's just been, I was having colonoscopies at like 19, you know. And so Jeff and I, again, been on this carnivore diet, eating only meat, and I will tell you it's tough, and it ain't what it's cracked up to be. It got to be really, I felt exactly like God, you know, the Israelites in the wilderness with the manna. I mean, it's like, you know, I can't eat another bite. Anyway, again, it was the most restful time my stomach has had probably in my entire life. And I would say that I fit to a T everything that Dr. D'Adamo says about blood types O. And again, something else I've noticed. My skin has cleared up. I was just fighting acne. I mean, I'm 57, you know, and I've always had it. I mean, my face has always broken out. There's never been a time. I've been, you know, lived at the dermatologist. You know, when I was a teenager, we stood in the sun lamps, you know, and they'd burn you to make you peel, you know, and stuff like that for acne. And still I was suffering, you know, from breakouts and stuff. My face is cleared up. Another thing I noticed, like, I don't brush my hair, I pick my hair. And when I would pick, you know, my hair in the morning, you know, when it's wet, I mean, my pick would just be covered in hair, and I'd have to, you know, get it off and throw it away. There was hardly anything on there now. And then I know the shedding, you know, the shedding has, so my hair is like, and there for a while my hair was just getting thin, and it just wasn't curling. It was just looking, you know, like poorly, and it just didn't look good. I noticed right away that my hair has just improved so much. So all of this, I think, goes along with what Doug Kaufman says too, because I'm not providing sugar to the fungus. Now, interestingly, about 2 weeks before that happened to Jeff, I go to a naturopath occasionally in Buford, and we went, and she told me a lot of things. My blood sugar was up. I mean, my whole report was bad. And she said that you've got a parasite. Well, a parasite is a fungus. Okay, so she asked me, you know, was I cleaning like the vegetables really well? And I mean, I thought I was, you know, but I read, so this is what I've been doing. I've been soaking the vegetables in vinegar and water for like 20 minutes, okay? Or you can buy that vegetable wash. But so as soon as I get home from the store, I put them in vinegar and water and just let them sit there, you know, until I get ready to put them up. All right. So what I'm doing is I'm starving the fungi while at the same time creating better digestion for my gut. All right, and then I'm also balancing for me less carbs and more meat. Okay, because I just don't do good on carbs. And now my third doctor, and I hope we're going to go over time, but I want to finish this. So if you have to go, go. But I want to try to finish this. So, and I won't spend a lot of time on this third one. But anyway, my third one is a doctor that I think has gotten a very bad and unjust rap, and that is Dr. Atkins. Now, to quote Dr. D'Adamo, he says, here's the bottom line. We are predisposed to certain strengths and weaknesses according to our blood types. We can maximize our strength and minimize our weaknesses by knowing that our bodies need and feeding ourselves and our families accordingly. So the crux of Eat Right for Your Blood Type resides in the fact that certain foods complement certain blood types, and other foods antagonize and debilitate particular blood types. So by stressing the complementary foods and eliminating the clearly antagonistic foods, you can promote the best possible balance for your immune and digestive systems. hang on a minute. All right, so, I think I got my notes out of order. Hang on a minute. Let me get down to. All right, so now moving on to what Dr. Atkins had to say. I think he was before his time. All right, and I think that he was one of those doctors that bucked the system, and just like Dave Kaufman. But the difference is Dr. Atkins went viral, and so to speak, and but he lived what he taught, and he died of an accident and not of his death, because that was a big thing. I wanted to know, what did he die of? You know, did he die of heart disease? Did he die of cancer? What did he die? Well, he slipped on ice and hit his head and died. Okay, and but I watched some YouTubes of him, you know, speaking and doing his thing. So the keto diet today that has swept society and is putting billions of dollars into retailers' pockets is in truth nothing more than the Atkins diet. And it's just been repackaged. And with keto, it gets so confusing because there are so many versions of it. And really, it's been capitalized on, and companies are profiting from it, and they're adulterating it. And so I'm of the opinion that the Atkins diet is still the simplest, most straightforward diet, and it achieves the same results as a true keto diet. And Dr. Atkins talked about the keto effect. And so now the book that I read, and it's over here if you want to look at it, is called The New Atkins Diet for a New You, and it's written by 3 different doctors. And at the end, I'm going to tell you how and why all of these recommended diets will work and how I've combined them. So the one takeaway from his book is that I want to show you here is the way that they explained carbohydrates and the way they work. Now, it opened my eyes, and it helped me so greatly to understand not only carbohydrates, but their role in diabetes. So this is what they said. Controlling carbohydrate intake has an important effect on the way the body handles fat, along with producing effects on lipid and cholesterol levels. The pancreas makes and releases insulin, which is a hormone, in response to increased glucose. Its job is to transport the blood glucose into mainly muscle and fat cells. It is known as the storage hormone because it promotes the storage of protein, fat, and carbohydrates. So that's what the pancreas does. So while insulin promotes the storage of nutrients, it simultaneously blocks the breakdown of protein, fat, and carbs in the body. So listen to this. When insulin is increased, it puts the brakes on burning fat for fuel, and at the same time, it encourages storage of incoming food, mostly as fat. But when you limit your carbohydrate consumption, which is what the Atkins diet is all about, which is what keto is all about, then you stimulate increased fat burning and you decrease fat synthesis. So in other words, your body uses the carbohydrates first. Why? Because fungus loves carbohydrates. Fungus loves sugar. So your body eats that first because you got the fungi sitting there waiting. All right? Because fungus won't eat fat. Fungus only eats sugar. All right? Fungus doesn't like meat. And so fungus eats the carbohydrates first. And then what do? They spit out mycotoxins, which make you sick. And then the fat that you ate, okay, that was not utilized, doesn't become fuel, all right, but it sticks around unused, and where does it go? You know, all the places you don't want it to go, right? And so it's stored. So he goes on and he said, fat burning, fat breakdown are exquisitely sensitive to changes in the amount of insulin released. Small decreases in insulin can almost immediately increase fat burning several-fold. So the goal is to decrease storage and increase breakdown. So when you burn more fat, you store less. So just to clarify, Let's get grounded on a few terms that we all hear but may not completely understand what they are. So what is a carbohydrate? Well, carbs come in two general flavors, sugars and starches. And we want to stay away from the bullies, which are the simple carbohydrates. And the Atkins diet and the keto diet and the Kaufman diet and the Dr. Adamo diet all focus on finding the right carbs and in the right amounts to heal the body, protect the body, and keep weight to a normal range. All right, now what are triglycerides? Triglycerides are fat circulating in your blood, and they're available to be burned as fuel. If you have high triglycerides, then you have too much unused fat in the body. You're eating too many carbs and feeding the fungi. So the carbs are bullying the fat and pushing them aside and stopping them from being used. All right, now what is ketosis? You hear all this ketosis, get into ketosis, All right, what is that? Well, restricting carbs requires the body to use an alternative method to glucose or blood sugar as the brain's primary fuel. So in place of glucose, the liver uses fat molecules, or what they call ketones. So ketosis is whenever carbs are restricted and fat becomes its primary fuel. So that's what the ketosis and the keto diet are all about. So now let's talk about inflammation for a minute. We hear a lot today about inflammation. And we know that cancer is an inflammation. We know that heart disease is an inflammation. And in truth, everything is caused by inflammation. But nobody talks about why the inflammation and what is the cause of the inflammation. Okay, so what is inflammation? Well, I think this is the takeaway from this whole lesson, would be inflammation. And inflammation is the body's response to protect itself against harm. So when a virus attacks, you will get inflammation as it surrounds the virus and takes it captive. But fungi in our bodies take over through carbohydrates, and chronic inflammation is the result. So that fungus is producing microtoxins, your body encapsulates it, tries to capture it, okay? But then what happens, it spreads, it finally overwhelms your body, and it moves to the breasts, or it moves to the brain, or wherever it moves to all these different places, and it can't contain it. And so it results in cancer. That's what a tumor is, okay? And so tumors are really, in truth, encapsulated fungi. Now I want to throw in here that your skin is the engine light. Remember I told you my face is cleared up? Your skin is the engine light. And when the engine light comes on, something comes up on your skin. It's telling you that something's wrong in your body. Now, I was telling Teresa that Sunday night, I think it was, and this is my cheapness coming out. I don't think, I'll have to check my list, I don't think I'm supposed to have oats, okay? And I've always known that oats hurt my stomach. Like if I eat oatmeal, I'll have a stomach ache. And but I drank some oat milk, okay? I bet you 15 minutes later, my back was itching so bad. I went and got my back scratcher, and I'm just tearing my back up. I had a reaction to that oat milk, okay? So now that I've gotten everything out, and as I add things back in, oh my gosh. And I was having a problem with my back itching anyway. My scalp and my back was just driving me crazy. But I hadn't really, my scalp a little bit, but it's calmed down. But my back had quit. And when I ate that, I'm telling you what, I was miserable. And anyway, so now I know I can't eat that, or I can't drink that. And so your skin is your first indication that something's wrong. And your skin is yelling at you that there's something wrong on the inside. A lump, a swelling, that's the same thing, okay? We should obviously pay attention to those. But I think there's something so much better we can do than run to the doctor and have it taken out, or go get on chemo or whatever. So now in the case of diabetes, this is what they said. Dietary carbohydrates act like a metabolic bully They demand that they be burned first, and they push fats to the back of the line, which promotes the buildup of excess fat storage. That big fat man, what was his deal? Why he had to eat like that? Because the fungus has literally overtaken his whole body and is screaming to be fed. They literally bully you. So the cravings that you have, those I've got to have, those must-have food to make you feel better. All right, but diabetes is when the body literally gives up and stops fighting back. It stops keeping blood sugar within a safe range. It literally was overpowered and simply gave up. That's what a lot of the diseases we're suffering from are. Your body just gave up. And you know how the doctors will tell you, well, it's genetic, or they don't know why your body turned on itself. You hear that. You know, like fibromyalgia, and think, well, your body turned on it. Well, they don't know why. That's a bunch of garbage. God didn't make your body to turn on itself and devour itself. There's an underlying cause that they're not telling us. So literally your body just gives up the fight. It is overpowered, it's bullied, and that is called, and I've heard this, you've probably heard the term metabolic syndrome. And metabolic syndrome is caused by high insulin, causing excess fat storage, which leads to inflammation and the formation of plaque in your arteries. Can you say Jeff Farster? He is textbook. His heart is strong as an ox. They said nothing is wrong with his heart. His heart is perfectly strong. But he had diabetes, he had all that around his belly, and he had metabolic syndrome, high insulin, stored too much fat, and he had plaque in 2 of his arteries that almost transported him to heaven. So if you take away the bully and the bruising, the bodily harm, then the damage stops. And Jeff's blood sugar is over, because his meter shows the last 90 days. I mean, it's coming down, 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 down. And so according to Doug Kaufman and Know the Cause, you need to treat the fungi that is the bully to start with. So if you don't do that, you're just not going to get anywhere. All right, and he tells you how to do it through nutrition, through natural things like olive leaf, garlic, things like that. There's a whole slew of stuff. Or doing a short round of an antifungal prescription. Now, I gave Jeff the book, The Fungus Link to Diabetes, and I told him he's got a doctor's appointment in like 3 weeks. And I said, I want you to read this book, and then we're going to ask the doctor for an antifungal drug. And I want to do that for a month, and I want to do it too. And of course you can do it through, a lot of different ways, but definitely cutting the carbs is one way. So our goal then is to arrest these metabolic bullies before they destroy us. And is this not what the keto diet is? And it's what the Atkins diet is all about. And so looking at all 3 of these medical practitioners and their diets, I think there is a takeaway from all 3 of them, at least for me. All right, and I have combined all 3. So I believe the fungus methodology is key to it all. All right, so if I was only going to follow one, I think, well, now I can't even say that. But I would definitely start with the fungus. I would definitely get the fungus under control. All right, and then I think that was the thing you got to deal with first. Now, again, the world is made of fungus in order to break everything down that is living and take it back to the earth, and that includes us. Okay, and so I believe also in the Eat Right for Your Blood Type by Dr. D'Adamo, as much as you can, which I know would be really hard for a whole family. All right, but my body has proven that book to be true, and at least, at minimum, I'm going to stay away from the foods that it says to stay away from, because those foods are really poison to my body. He tells you which foods are very beneficial, which foods are neutral, and which foods are harmful. So at least stay away from the harmful ones. All right, and so I think that, and then Dr. Atkins, he's got it completely correct in the relation between fats and carbs. So if we follow his recommendation, and really we need to eat more meat, most of us, than carbs, okay? And so I believe that we can hit the reset button no matter what shape we're in right now, and begin to arrest these bullies that are killing us too soon. Now, I know for a fact I'm only here because the Lord has kept me here. Okay, because I had epilepsy starting at 15. I had a breast cancer scare. I've had numerous stomach issues. I've had pneumonia twice. You know, as my sister said, I was always real sickly, you know, growing up and stuff. And so I know I'm only here because the Lord's kept me here. But I do believe we can get our immune system back to work. And I don't believe that the theory that your immune system, again, I already said this, goes haywire and begins to attack itself. And these autoimmune diseases that we're suffering from today, that's what the doctors tell you, are just your body's just turning on itself. That's garbage. God didn't make you like that. It's your body is fighting something. And I think that they're all fungus related and are being bullied and taken over. But medical science just wants to blame God for it and says the body's attacking itself, and they don't know why. So I think that's a bunch of hogwash. So God made the body, and he made it to work efficiently. And I think that the diseases we're experiencing are not from bad genes, but I believe they're from our food. So my father had a fungal infection in his lungs, and he had part of his lung removed, and they never knew, you know, where it came from or why he had it. He also died of lymphoma, which science has proven is a fungus related, is fungal related, but that's as far as they go. Interestingly enough, his brother also had some kind of fungal lung issue. All right, and so they grew up in the same house. They worked all their lives in the same building. Could they have gotten a mold or fungus that could have easily been dealt with? Had science known, had their medical doctors known. But instead, my father suffered with lymphoma and died, and had that horrible lung operation. So could God have been onto something in the book of Leviticus when 30 times he instructed about mold, which is a fungus? Can he heal us of these conditions? Yes, of course, but he was only interested, but if he was only interested in healing us, then why did he bother to even give us the instructions that he did dealing with mold? In other words, yeah, we can just keep living, you know, the way we want to live, and like that Septuagint said, you know, related it to committing suicide. Okay, we can just keep on eating donuts and, you know, eating garbage and stuff, and die early, okay, or pray for a miracle, which was what we're going to need, is a miracle healing. Or was God giving us instructions, which I just read you just a few scriptures on the body? He clearly was giving us instructions on living, okay? So I think, and people disagree with me, and that's fine, but I think once we have this knowledge and we don't do it, is that sin? Because he did clearly give us instructions on living. Now, if you've lived the best you can live, you know, and then you need a miracle, then fine, you know. And if you know, are really in bad shape right now and you need a miracle, then fine. Just, you know, Lord, I didn't know, you know, or repent, or, you know, whatever. And but I just think that why would he give us these instructions if he didn't expect us to live correctly and to do something, you know, about it? And so he's not just interested in healing us, or he wouldn't have given these instructions about dealing with mold. So I think it's better to heed his instructions than to get in a broken, desperate position and then need a miracle. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, God gave us a miracle with Jeff. And did I know for 20 years a lot of the stuff I'm sharing with you now? Yes. Did I live that? No. You know why? Because everybody made fun of me, everybody gave me a hard time when I'm talking about my husband and my kids, and is this real cheese, is this real milk, is it, you know, they still are, you know, they're giving me a hard time. You know what, if you want to die, have at it. You know, if you want to live and need a miracle, have at it. You know, I'm choosing to live like this, okay? And now I'm closing. So God made the world to work with laws. Just like gravity. He made gravity. So the world works with laws, and fungus is a part of those laws. Because without fungus, nothing would disintegrate. So he made the earth renewable, and fungus is a big part of that. And so you could say that fungus is one of those laws. And so it's better to work with the instructions that God gives us and work with the laws that God created and gave us, or would you say it's better to ignore them and then just trust God to heal us? Now, He's very merciful, and He will heal you. Okay, but which one is better? To wait until you're sick and almost destroyed and need a miracle, or just not poison ourselves to begin with? So maybe we should go back and read Leviticus again and then follow that up with some of the books that I've recommended, and then maybe the verse about the body being the temple might take on a new meaning. So I'll end with this. In Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 19, God tells us to choose life. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 19. So we're all to make decisions all throughout our life to choose life. And for me, it's come down to the point to, yes, I may want to eat that chocolate donut, but is that chocolate donut choosing life? For me, no, it's not. And it's going to lead me to death. It's going to wreak havoc on my body. Now I'm really going to feel the effects. Okay? And so I have to decide I'm going to choose life all day long. And every decision I make, I've got to decide, choose life. So I think this applies to food and anything else once we have the knowledge. So I'm encouraging you to choose life so you can finish your race well. So check out the books, and I've also printed a piece of paper that tells you all the doctors, where they're found on Facebook, YouTube, and there's some other ones on that list that I've been following. One is an Indian doctor out of Russia, and everything he tells you is all natural. Okay, so it's a lot of just simple stuff that you've even got in your cabinet right now. And I think he's really good. His name is Dr. Vivek. And there's one out of Tennessee that's on there, Dr. Barry. Now, he is not saved, okay, and you know it, okay? but he is, I like, you know, most of what he says, because he's coming at it from literally an MD, you know, that has, and he says, same deal with all these other ones, got into a medical crisis, he became a diabetic as a medical doctor, and he set out to, you know, find out and cure himself. And so now his whole methodology has changed, okay? So he's real good. And got one on there about COVID. If you're following COVID, you want to know more about COVID, Dr. Bean does a whole lot of stuff, medical lectures on COVID. He has a lot of doctors on there. That's why I've heard a lot of these hospitals, that their protocols are just garbage. I mean, they're killing everybody. And he has doctors on there that are telling you that. And so he's a good one. Anyway, so please take that paper and check some of these out and check the books out. And so I just hope everybody got something out of this. And I can tell you a whole lot more. So if you want to ask me questions, please feel free to. So I've been really experimenting with a whole lot of stuff and gagging Jeff, but but he'll fight me on it. He'll argue and complain, but he'll eat it or swallow it or whatever. It's like, you know. I think he's resolved to the fact that he's not going to win, so so he might as well give in.
Thank thank goodness he's got you.
That's what I tell him all the time.
Seriously.
You gripe and complain, but I'm the one that's keeping you. He wouldn't be, well, I mean, it was God, but he was literally, I mean,
Yeah.
it was a miracle that he was alive, but he's only alive because I'm the one who insisted. I mean, we got in a big fight and everything, because he wasn't gonna go to the doctor that morning. And I said, oh, no, you're going. And I helped him throw out 150 bales of straw just so we could get him to the doctor on time. And he wasn't gonna go, he was gonna reschedule. And his chest was hurting. So.
Man.
So he owes me his life. Anyway, all right, well,
Good job.
thanks for
Thank you.
coming, I hope you guys, so next time we'll talk about the spiritual root of disease and what to do about it. All right, bless y'all.
Thank you.